All right, everybody, welcome to episode 7 of Answer the Call. Today's topic, as you could see below, is how should Star Citizen or CIG handle casual players? As you could tell as well, the overlay has changed a little bit. This week, we're trying just me here, since it's a call-in show, is just having me instead of that kind of distracting image on the side when we have a guest. So we kind of redid the overlay a little bit to make sense for the solo kind of shows. In the coming weeks, we're going to be trying some other overlays, maybe with chat on the screen from Twitch. We'll see. So I just want to jump right into this one and not waste too much time. I think it's really, really important before we do anything to define a casual player. Now, I think everyone's opinion of what a casual player is or their definition of what a casual player is going to be completely different for each person. Now, it is very important to go, in my opinion, for this discussion today, to start with something in particular. A casual player for this discussion is not based on the amount of time that you play. I think it's very obvious how Star Citizen plans to handle players that have a lot of time to play versus players that do not. For the players that do not have a lot of time to play, their expectations is that you're going to spend some money to buy a ship or to buy UEC or to buy whatever to get yourself a little bit of a Kickstarter or a head start or a little boost to actually enjoy the gameplay that you want. The version of casual that I'm discussing is the Care Bear type, where they are very risk avertant, or they don't want to die. I don't want to get killed. I don't want to be involved in any PvP at all. Those are the kind. That's what I mean by casual player. That's my definition of a casual player. So if you're discussing this topic on the YouTube channel or in the Twitch chat, or if you're planning on calling in today, I really want to focus on that style of player, not the I don't have enough time to play style of player. I think they're both casual. I think they both represent casual in the same sense of the word, but for the point of this discussion, we want to go from there, okay? And we'll start out with this. I was really looking for this for a long time, and I could not find it. I think it was in the old forums. That's why I couldn't find it. Way back when, I think probably 2014, there was a vote on the forums about what style of gameplay was the Star Citizen community or the Star Citizen backers most interested in. And that vote went completely away from combat roles and was more into the mercantile roles, the exploration, the mining, the salvage. That's what people wanted. Now, I don't consider that style of gameplay casual, but it's certainly not PvP-centric. I also don't consider hardcore PvP. I think you can have a hardcore miner, a hardcore salvage player, someone that takes it seriously. I think we should define a hardcore player as well. A hardcore player, in my opinion, would be someone who is min-maxing, maybe spending some time outside of the game trying to figure out how to be the most efficient, what the best loadout is, those kind of things. I would consider a hardcore player, and not just for a PvP role, but for an exploration role and so on. Whereas a casual player is just jumping in, experiencing the game how they may want, but for the topic of discussion, again, I really want to point this out, is that we're talking about the casual player that doesn't want to get involved in PvP, doesn't want to risk really anything. They're, oh my god, I lost my ship, I'm so sad. That kind of player, okay? Now, the most important thing to do, and this will be linked in the YouTube description, is to go to a very, very old post on the Robert Space Industries website that is titled Death of a Spaceman. Death of a Spaceman outlines Star Citizen's plan basically for their entire game. even though it is mainly a discussion about how they will handle death in Star Citizen, it really outlines Chris's idea for Star Citizen and the persistent universe and how he wants it to be. Okay? It is a very risk versus reward system in Star Citizen. If you go out there and you risk death, risk losing your ship, risk anything in general, the rewards will be higher. That is a design plan for Star Citizen. Okay? He wants the players to feel accomplished when they do a difficult trading run or kill a famous pirate. I think most people know, but just in case you don't know, Star Citizen is planned to have a permadeath mechanic, but they kind of give you a certain amount of deaths until you're actually permanently dead. Once you're permanently dead, then your all the items that you own, including some of your reputation, will be passed on to your next of kin, whatever you choose. So you may like start as a male character, but you choose your next of kin to be a female. But like with like let's say if you're a pirate, wouldn't you expect your kid to end up kind of following in the same path? So Star Citizen assumes that, but then you have the option to change that path over time and kind of change people's opinions of you, I guess. All right. This is a quote from the Q&A at the end. And it is, and I quote, "We're building a combat game, and we're going to do everything possible to encourage players to dogfight and otherwise battle each other." And I don't think that has changed at all from day one to now. And I think that that's really important. That quote is very, very important. Dogfight and otherwise battle each other. So that is a very, very important thing to understand right now. So again, let's go back to that original poll. Most people don't want combat roles in the game from that original poll. Now, that poll was a long time ago. There's been a lot more people in Star Citizen. So it's very, very interesting the direction that CIG wants the game to be, but they have a whole giant sector of their community that doesn't really want that. So it's going to be a really difficult balance for Star Citizen to say, well, we have to appease to this section of the community, but we want our game to be like this, right? So that's why I think this is a really good topic of discussion, because it is going to be the biggest challenge for Star Citizen, is that most of people don't want combat roles. Now, again, that doesn't mean that they're casuals, but they don't want to be PvP centric, okay? So I kind of want to leave it there as far as the outline. Now, how do I think CIG should handle casual players? I think they have to in some way, shape, or form, but I really believe that they should stay tried and true to the way they designed the game in that Death of a Spaceman outline. It's risk versus reward. If you stay in UEE space, which you still will have some risk in UEE space. Space is big. It's not everybody can see everything that's going on all the time, right? That space is very large. So there's going to be issues no matter where you are, I believe, but the risk versus reward really has to come into play. Now, what they really, really need to do is say, okay, so you spent time around the Terra system. It's beautiful. You may just want to hang out there and look around, but eventually you might want to progress a little bit further and do some really cool things, maybe explore an asteroid belt or look for a jump point or, I don't know, search planets for creatures, things like that, things that aren't PvP centric, right? But if you're going to find the coolest ones and feel accomplished, you might have to run through a piracy-filled system or just not UEE space, which doesn't necessarily mean pirate space, but not safe space, right? So for me, what makes me feel and what makes me love a video game is something that gets your heart pumping. And what gets my heart pumping, and this is just how I like to play video games, is that risk of death, the risk of losing everything. Now, that's how I think they should do it on kind of the gameplay style of like go here, go there, but there should be some difficult times in between. Now, we already kind of know how they're handling it somewhat to this point, and this was also mentioned in the Death of a Spaceman post. Again, that will be linked below. Is the progression is ships. It's mentioned in that post as well. But you can have insurance to make sure you don't lose your ship. And that insurance shouldn't cost much. It should be very easy to maintain that insurance. Now, it's also mentioned the ability to have insurance for your upgraded components. Now, this is where I think that there's an issue, and this is where I don't think this is how CIG should be handling casual players, is when you lose your ship, you should lose the components that were on it that you upgrade. And I don't know if there should be insurance that allows for you to keep it, and if there is, it should be massively expensive. Because at some point, guys, there has to be decay, I guess, of items in the game. And what I mean by that is, and I guess they can manage this a bit with their kind of simulated economy, is if you're constantly blowing up ships but maintaining the components that you bought, they'll never hold their value because there'll be so many of them out there in the verse. So eventually it's going to break and become like the economy, I guess, or the weapon or component buying economy will eventually break because nobody will ever lose those components if you make it so it makes perfect sense to always insure your entire ship. So if you're going to insure your entire ship and all the components and everything, the cargo inside, all that stuff, so there's no risk aversion at all, there's no reward. There's no reward for doing it. Now, in a PvP, now this is where I think it breaks PvP players, is wouldn't it make sense as a PvP player to always keep your components? Because that's all you do. Now, what happens when you die? You pay a bit of money, but if all you do is kill people, where's the balance in that? You know? So obviously the way CIG is kind of explaining how to do it is, well, if you don't want any risk aversion, stay in the safe areas, but you're not going to earn any rewards, basically, or very small rewards. Think of, I don't know, an asteroid belt right now in the game around the Crusader truck stop. There's only a couple rocks there to mine. There aren't many. But around the Yella asteroid belt, there's rocks all over. Laranite, very expensive rocks. But there's pirates all around the Yella asteroid belt, around Grimhex especially, right? So that's kind of the example that I'm talking about. I don't think we really see it in the game right now, fully functioning, but you know, when interdictions come in and all these things like properly, I think we're really going to see it. There's also going to be a major balance with griefing. That is not a topic for discussion today. If things, things that we just discussed today open the chance for griefing, then CIG maybe has to handle that in a different way. I'm going to read this quote again one more time so it really hammers home with everybody. We are building a combat game and are going to do everything possible to encourage players to dogfight and otherwise battle each other. And with that said, I think I'm going to bring you guys in, hear some of you callers in and hear your opinions and see what you guys have to say. So KingGEAR is the first one in line, and we're going to bring him on. KingGEAR?
Hi, Dad.
Hey, you're on Answer the Call, KingGEAR. So what's your opinions?
So, personally, I think CIG should handle casual players like how Elite Dangerous handles a lot of casual players. I know that you mentioned, about them having a permanent death feature, but what if CIG went the way with how Elite did it, or has it now, where if you lose your ship or lose anything, you just pay an insurance fee and you get everything back. with, of course, a provided cost, maybe like a 1%, 10% cost of the original of the thing that you were flying. So if you're flying an Idris that costs, 20 billion UEC, you pay that 1 billion UEC to take it all back with the cargo that you had. And yeah, I think that's how TSG should handle casual players in the death way.
Don't you? So you're leaning more on the very casual side then, in my opinion. I think Elite
Yeah.
Dangerous handles it very, very casually, and that's not, in my opinion, not a good thing, especially if their goal is to be a PvP centric game. Possibly, I think that this post is really old. First off, and I don't think they're going to be as combat centric as they're saying in this post, and I don't think that they should be.
Yeah.
I think they should. There needs to be a middle line, but in my opinion, King, from what you're saying and what they're saying in this, it has to be very combat centric, right?
Gotcha.
But I don't agree that it should just be pay money and keep everything, because I've played games like that, and the ability to the thing that breaks it with Star Citizen for me is that if you do it that way, and it's sort of the way that they plan on doing it, except it might be relatively expensive, is if you do it that way, let's say I don't even blow up your ship. I've boarded it and I've killed you. And I've taken that ship and, stripped it for parts, or I've taken the ship and used it for myself. So now we have a Cutlass, let's say, that I've taken over, and I've stripped it for all the parts, and you had very, very good parts. Now, if your system works your way, then they'll just reclaim that ship, get it all back, and now there's duplicate parts in the verse again.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
And then it duplicates again and again and again and again. And then everybody has those parts. And then they don't retain their value anymore.
I feel you now.
You know what I mean? So for me, the big thing that I don't like is that they're giving you the option, and it now they haven't told us how good of an option it is yet, of protecting all of your stuff on the ship and maybe on your armor, all of that, right? It just inherently just keeps growing and growing and growing, and then those components are just everywhere, and then they're not really like, wow, that's a really good component. I had to travel really far to go get it. Like, no, you didn't. Everybody has them now, and they're just trading them with each other, right?
I understand, yeah.
And then then like from there, now you're going like, oh, okay, well, pirates, now there's no point in actually doing piracy because it's just as cheap to just go and buy the component. Now, again, I said that earlier as well, that with the way the economy works in Star Citizen, they can likely smooth that out a little bit. But yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you have any other kind of feelings? Because we only have one other caller waiting at the moment. So we can go a little bit longer if you want. Like, with that said, do you have any other ideas of maybe something now that I've said it that way?
Yeah, I mean, after you said that, now I completely understand why they would have the mechanic that they're trying to implement into the game now.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't make sense to have something worth 100 million UEC and being duplicated all around the verse and everybody get rich, pretty easily.
Yeah.
So I do understand the whole mechanic of losing everything that you have via permanent death future.
And not even via permanent death. Like, if you whatever you have when you actually like die in the game, that will get transferred over to your next character. But I just mean in general, like, I've blown up your ship.
Yeah.
I don't think you should be able to like just get the cargo back or get the upgrades back. I think that's sort of like a broken design there a little bit. But there has to be some middle ground where, okay, I got to keep my ship, but now I have to work to get those components back. Or I've, gone out there and me and my org, we worked together and we bought a bunch of components and we have them stored at the org base. And you just go back to the base and get those components again. But we earn them. We, maybe like brought the materials to a place to have them made. We paid for them, and the economy keeps going, right? I don't think that the game should be directly affected by PvP, because this could come into any case where well, I ran my ship into something else. Like how about that, right? Like
Yeah,
we have a huge problem right now with ramming in Star
yeah, with
Citizen,
ESP.
where people just run into other ships and ram them because they think it's funny. And they go, oh, well, there's going to be, you know, we're going to be able to protect you against that eventually. If people keep doing that, then it's going to be a problem. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
like, really, how do you track, you know, who's RAM to and why? Like, it's a little bit difficult. So,
And then you
yeah.
again with the ramming, you have the criminal stat where if you're near a comlink and you have that comlink established to your ship, if you try to ram anything near per se Port Olisar or
Mhm.
Levski or anything like that, you get that crime stat and your name almost immediately goes red. Not always because it's a bit buggy right now, but
Yeah.
that's also a way of tracking who bumps who or whatnot. I mean, you don't know for sure who bumped you, but around you from just getting that criminal stat. Or this guy did something recently, or this guy did something either far back that he doesn't even care about his crime stat.
Yeah. Um, that's fine, right? But like, okay, so that'll work, but that's not necessarily where what the issue is for me. Like, yes, they're gonna get a crime stat, but you can maybe lower your crime stat or whatever. It's just the fact that I've rammed my ship, I've blown the thing up completely, and then I can respawn it 2 minutes later. And that may not be the case. We also know that it'll take time, all these things to get your ships back, so on and so forth, right? If you want to speed up the process, it'll take more money. That's a great gold sink for the game.
Yeah.
That's a great way to say, okay, I'm a casual player. I accidentally blew up my ship. Okay, I'll pay a little bit of money and get it back faster. But you should learn from your mistakes, let's say, and I lost the components and I lost my cargo. I shouldn't be able to get it back. You know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah, I agree totally with that.
Yeah.
That's one thing that also Elite Dangerous does well. That if you're, in like a Type 9 or whatever, a Type 10, and you're transporting cargo and you get killed, you don't get the cargo back. If you have
Yeah.
20 mil worth of cargo, you lose that immediately, which is a huge loss for you in
Yeah.
the end.
I think it should be the same way with components. I think you should get
Yeah.
I think you should go to the dealership and get a new thing from the dealership. You know what I mean? Like when you I guess as a real life example, if you've like put non-stock parts on like your Honda Civic and you're and like going around making all this noise and bothering people, but
Yeah.
when you crash that car, you're going to get the value of the car that you bought originally. I don't think you get the value of the upgrades that you put on the car necessarily. Am I right? Like, I've never done any upgrades to my car, but I imagine that when you do that, like I put a new muffler on my car that makes a lot of noise, that I don't know if the insurance company really cares.
No, yeah, I mean it's really it's your car. Basically, you can do whatever the heck, whatnot. So you can put whatever components, I guess.
People in
Or
chat are saying it depends if you let the insurance know or not. Okay.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, man. So now we have a couple more guys in the green room. So
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna let you go, and I'm gonna bring IDDKFA in. All right. So thanks for your call, and it's good to have an Elite Dangerous, I guess someone who plays it because I don't, and a lot of people make the comparisons between the two games a lot. So it's good to have that perspective. Thanks, King. We'll see you next time. All right, IDD, you're on Answer the Call. What's up, man?
What up, chat? What up, twerk?
What's up?
You've caught me on the wrong foot a little bit because my definition and thus how I understood the topic is different.
Okay.
For me, you can have casual PvP players as well.
Of course, absolutely. I want to make sure that it's not from a PvP standpoint, but risk versus reward often does involve PvP, but that doesn't mean that it's not PvE either, right? Like from a World of Warcraft perspective, aren't the most hardcore players in the PvE scheme like the highest? They're doing the biggest raids, like the most difficult raids. Like I consider those hardcore players as well.
Yes, of course.
Okay. So, I mean, are we more on the same page now that I say that?
not really.
Okay, well then let's start with your definition first. How about that?
My definition of a casual player, those are players who are just looking for some fun in a game and move on to another game rather sooner than later. And
But there can be casual
yeah.
players that play MMOs for many years, no?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
That's
so
why
they
I
don't
have a
necessarily move
different
on to other
definition.
games. I just want to make sure.
No, they don't. They don't have to. But that's my definition of a casual.
Okay,
And they often don't care for the depth of the game.
and by depth you mean like, you know, they may not want to do the hardest core things.
More like the depth of the game mechanics.
Go into more detail if you don't mind.
They don't. For an extreme example, they don't min-max.
Okay.
They jump into a ship, accept the mission, and they don't really care how they complete the mission.
Mm-hmm.
They just try to complete the mission, but not in the most efficient way.
Yeah.
Or in the shortest time or whatever, like more of the core players will do over the course of the time by understanding and mastering the various game mechanics.
We agree 100% on that. So I agree with you there that it's they're not min-maxing. They're not thinking about the game as much as possible to try and be the best at whatever they're trying to do. It doesn't have to be PvP.
They
so
just play
we
the
agree there.
game and have a good time.
And what for you? What would be playing the game and having a good time for a casual player? Like I said, for me, maybe it's staying in UEE space and actually enjoying mining and salvage and whatever. I think you can have every game mechanic, bounty hunting even, in UEE space, in more safe space, but you're just not going to make as much money, and you may not get the accolades and accomplishments that are out there in the verse in other places. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at. You can enjoy all the game mechanics here, and you can play them, but you can't play them like you can out here.
And I think that can be an issue down the road.
And how so?
Because they feel they get locked out of content.
Okay.
Just because they don't want to participate in any PvP action.
But again, it's not just PvP. I mean, there's not going to be any unfounded black holes in UEE space, most likely. Maybe there's a couple, right? But I think we know full well that those are going to probably be found relatively quickly or something like that, because I think most people will probably spend a lot of time in UEE space, let's say. But that doesn't mean that mining a really awesome rock should, like, there may be some in UEE space, but there'll be more in unsafe space. Now, that doesn't mean that they're locked out of that content. They just have to risk it. And it's also my understanding now, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you know IDD or if anybody that's watching right now, but it's my understanding as well. I feel like I heard this somewhere. It's been so many years, though, since I heard it, that if you voluntarily go out into known pirate space, that your insurance may not cover you as well. That's also an option. That is an option to say, that's an option to cater towards hardcore players, but that's where I think I agree with you, IDD. I think that's too hardcore, possibly. Okay? Do you agree with me there? Is that what you were saying, kind of?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think the issue is still the same. because
Okay.
they want risk-averse gameplay,
Yes.
and they want all the shit that others get going into dangerous space.
But then, like, I hate to say it, and this is really bad. This is why I want to have this discussion. Is then they shouldn't play Star Citizen. But the thing is, in how I hope that they do it and how I want to see them do it is they do get all the gameplay inside UEE space. They just don't get it as rewarding. But what you're saying is they want all the rewards too.
Of course.
But then I don't know. I just don't know how else to say it other than like go find a different game then. You know?
That's an issue barely any game has solved.
Exactly. Like I don't think we're gonna solve it today. I've brought up a game called Albion Online many times. That game has zero protection for casual players, really. They're only early on, and the most like low tier materials, because everything's made in the game through materials, is in they're called blue zones. So it's very similar to kind of what we're talking about now, is there's safe zones, like sort of safe zones, not safe zones, and then very dangerous zones. And the further you get away, the better the materials are that are there, and the more risky it is. And that's not just from the PvP standpoint, but the NPC monsters are more difficult as well. So risk versus reward. That game is not a casual game whatsoever, and the player base is fairly small because of that. Because I think so many MMOs are leaning towards more and more and more is catering to the casual player, but I don't think Chris wants to do that. I think the answer the call, the Death of a Spaceman post still holds true, but they need to find a nice middle ground. I don't think we're gonna please everybody, but they really need to make sure that hardcore players are happy and your casuals are happy. And what I hope is that casuals can enjoy the game in UEE space and experience all the content, not as in depth, like you said, and then go from there.
Here's what usually happens. If they keep the game as it is promised right now, you will lose a lot of players.
Oh yeah, a lot of current backers
want to do PvP, and then you force a reaction. What are you doing? You make it more, let's say, quote unquote, casual friendly. You lose the PvP players because the PvP players need the PvE players. Right?
Exactly. They need to be killing the miners that are going out there and getting easy loot. PvP players often are looking for easy loot, and then you have Arena Commander or big org battles for those like really cool PvP experiences.
And when it comes to, let's say, the player base is dwindling down, right? What you usually see is they cut the PvP players. They cater to the majority, right?
Exactly, which will likely be the casuals, right?
Right. And I don't see how Star Citizen can be an exception to this.
I agree.
Because most players do PvE, don't prefer PvP combat. They fine with PvE combat or environmental risks. But I think what most games do is lower the punishment that you get from dying due to PvP.
And that's where the issue is they are lowering it because they are giving you your ship back. But I feel like if they lower it too much, that's when we run into the problem. And this is my opinion, is that giving them all their ship components back, and if it's like insurance-style prices where they're not really expensive, then I have a major issue with that. I mean, I'm okay. Like, we can maybe come up with some arbitrary numbers now, and IDD, I'll give you like one more chance because we actually have a lot of callers now, is maybe it should be 50% or 75% of the original cost of the components. But you get them back.
I can't answer that. That's down to balancing.
Yeah, exactly. We can't answer that now. The numbers are just arbitrary, but I still think it should be not a very low amount, because then the choice would be obvious, would be to always insure everything, right? And that needs to have at least be a difficult decision every time you leave port. If they're going to go that route and allow you to insure all of your stuff, it needs to be a difficult decision whether or not you want to do it because of profit margin or whatever, right?
Mm.
All right, but I'm going to let you go because we got other guys. So thank you for stopping by. And again, we're trying to keep the calls down as low as possible, but the first two were the only two that were in here, so we let them go for some time.
Yeah, no problem. Later.
Thank you. I have nowhere to put them. Oh, I guess Sunday's handling it. Chomp, welcome to answer the call. Thank you, Sunday. I appreciate it. I know where to put IDD.
Hey, so I go by Awelowynt on Twitch.
Oh, Awelowynt, how are you? We've met in person as well.
Yes, we have.
Yeah. So how's it going? I guess does your definition of casual, is it different than mine? And then from there, how do you think CIG should handle a casual player?
Well, I still feel like casual might be better off being more time or commitment based, but I don't fully disagree with how you've.
Well, I agree that you can.
I'm still kind of chewing on it. So.
Oh, we have a little bit of an echo as well, but I agree with you that it should be that way, but that we can define it that way. But the reason that I don't want to go that way is because I think CIG has already determined how they want to handle that, and I don't think it's going to change. So the time-based stuff is simply going to be, well, I think we'll have to discuss travel times and things like that. That was actually sort of a hot topic this week with talking about on what was it, Calling All Devs, where somebody asked a question if they can travel while offline or whatever. But the reason I don't want to go into time like sinks for players or how much time they spend in the game is because CIG is clearly just going to sell a ship to you or UEC to make up for that time, and we don't think that that's going to change. So I would rather discuss like actual gameplay elements on how to talk about casual players than time. But yeah, if you have anything from that, go from there.
Okay. Well, one thing I had to note: do you think they'll be selling ships after release beyond the starter pack?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, okay. Absolutely. So, yeah, just a little bit ago, you were talking about with like component insurance. You're saying it should be super expensive, like say 75% the cost of the item.
Mm-hmm.
Or one thing where that would actually be a really viable option is if you have an expensive component that you spent, you went on this super long quest to go track down this rare component. Yeah, paying 75% out of pocket, that's a lot easier than spending 7 hours trying to find it again.
That's true as well. But the difference with that is it's a rare component rather than a component that can I guess it still goes in line with what I was saying, where it being rare, if you die and somebody else gets it, now you've duplicated that component at no time sink to get it, which I think eventually is not a good game design for the insurance, I guess. So how would you handle it? Would you say no insurance on rare items? Would you say I don't know. It's tough. I mean, that's why I want to ask this question, is because I don't have the answer either. And maybe we can come to some.
You might even make the premiums or the deductibles so much that the cost actually exceeds the cost of the item because you're paying for convenience rather than time. I mean, usually for super expensive stuff, it also depends on what kind of risk you're looking at. Like in real life, if you're insuring something, super valuable, the insurance company is like, oh, cool. So what kind of safety you have? And you're not going to be traveling with it. It's going to stay in one place, right? It's what kind of risk do you have for that? So if you're putting a super rare component on a combat ship and going out and fighting pirates, then your premiums are either going to be amazingly high or they're not going to insure you because of how much risk there is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a good way to go about it. I just, in my opinion, I don't know if they should do anything above like standard components or components that can be purchased maybe at. Here I just kind of maybe had not an epiphany, but some thoughts in my head about this. Is that the only items that can be insured there would probably be a large amount of them. But when you go to like most ports, when you go to the shop, there'll probably be pretty standard items, even though there might be upgraded items to your ship. Those can be insured at a reasonable cost. But when you start going into the how about this, guys? This is way better of a way of doing it. I don't think the best components are going to be purchased from a store. They're going to be overclocked, right? We know that overclock system is coming into the game. So when we're talking specifically about ship components and insurance on ship components, the best components, the components that people are going to want to buy from other players or maybe even NPCs, are going to be overclock components. And those are at such high risk to break or so on and so forth that, first off, they'll break easily, which means that they'll disappear from the game universe easily, which retains their value. And second, that they are maybe uninsured because of that reason. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, you might even say it's like, oh, you can insure it, but it'll give you back just, a regular variant of that part rather than the actual, added on value of the overclock itself.
Mm-hmm. And someone in Twitch chat, I don't usually do this, but this is a good question. How does that fit into the topic, though? Casuals don't care about min-maxing. I've come across casuals that actually have a lot of time to spend in game, but they're not interested in doing risk-averse things or risky things. They're more risk-averse, sorry. And they end up amassing a large wealth, and they say, here you go. I will spend this much money to get that component and go out and do my thing with it. I still don't think that should be insured. This doesn't just go into components. This goes into rare items, all sorts of things. I mean, a good example is, again, going back to Albion Online. My guild, we play endgame content. We have multiple territories in Albion Online, which is basically endgame content. But we pay money in game to rent those territories from from hardcore players that actually earned the territory. See what I mean? So you could still do hardcore endgame content, but there's ways of doing it that aren't necessarily the game design way, I guess. But yeah, I guess, Awelowynt, I'll let you go on. You can make one more comment if you want, and then we'll get to the next call.
All right. One more thought I had was for concerning insurance. What about hooking it into sort of the reputation system, based on either how many cargo missions you've gone, how many claims you've filed in the past 6 months, whatever. I mean, like with car insurance in real life, if you keep having accident after accident after accident, eventually your insurance is just going to get canceled and no one will insure you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's how it would be anyway, right? Eventually, you're no longer insurable. At some point, your insurance does drop you.
And kind of the on the plus side of that too, it's if you're always doing cargo runs in the green zone and you've never been attacked by pirates or you've never had your cargo stolen from you, sure, we'll let you insure your cargo, this one time, and then the first time you get hit by pirates, this month, then maybe next load you won't be able to insure.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, because then that might allow them to amass a wealth in a safe area where other people are actually have to be risky to do it. So I don't know, but Chomp, I'm gonna let you go, and then do me a favor.
Part of it, though,
Next
is
time,
also,
have
since
headphones.
it's such a safe area, it's just unneeded expense then.
Yeah.
But good talk.
All right, man.
Talk to you in stream then. Later.
Later, dude. All right, Sielski, you're now on Answer the Call.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And how are you?
I'm good. So we'll start out the same way with everybody. Does your definition of casual fit sort of in line with mine, and how should CIG handle those players?
I would say so. In my personal views, I would say that it's exactly the same as yours. However, like, is this game going to be super casual? Because all the features that they're going to implement, or they say they're going to implement, are going to have to force a casual person anyway to do something which is risky. So, like, like hitting on the components, I honestly personally feel that if the insurance itself doesn't insure the components, like Elite Dangerous, you just virtually get Elite Dangerous, you get the hull and then your component, you pay a whack of money and you're off again. If Star Citizen does it a total different way, where it's basically a hull, you get your hull back. That hull comes with the manufacturer's weapons that they sell it with. So then it also drives player interaction, which drives PvE as well. So that person will have to then go to, say, an organization that is well known for tuning and is well known for having the best components that will last. So then they're going to have to fork out again.
And maybe even an NPC that does those things. But that NPC, you have to go to a certain system in a certain place and talk to a certain person and then another to get there.
Or maybe do it like the Destiny, where the certain character only is in a certain system for a certain amount of time, and that once that time's over, then you can't get those components anymore. It would definitely add to the casuals if they like the PvE side of things as well, or if they want to take it slow.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, is this game really going to be that casual with with the amount of stuff that's going to be in it? It's going to at some point. A casual likes an ease of life. Like they'll like, for example, World of Warcraft. Everybody goes towards the flying skill, not because it's super cool or anything like that. It's because it's an ease of life. Like they want to get from one place quicker to another place. So like in Elite Dangerous, you want the best FSD drive to then be able to fly further. Just because you don't want to do so many jumps.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so it's going to force people to do that anyway. So if they do it correctly, you'll have like orgs benefiting because of the people be coming to them for certain stuff, or certain people who are just random players that are not in orgs, maybe that are just really good at tuning in the game, and people be contacting them and saying, "Hey, can I buy one of those quantum drives again? I kind of blew up." You know what I mean? So I think that if the insurance part of it is just the basics, it'll add a better impact on the economy and player base as well.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all. I think that's a really good point. Honestly, I don't have much to add other than it still comes down to allowing the player to enjoy all the game mechanics the way they like to, and play the game. I think like when I look at like I experience and interact with some people that I consider extremely casual when it comes to Star Citizen and what they want to do in the game. Like there's way too many people that go, well, I'm just going to go and fly my ship and look at things. And it's like, no, you're not. Because eventually that's going to get boring and you're going to want to actually play the game. I know Star Citizen is this beautiful, beautiful game, but you're going to want to go see cooler and more beautiful things. So even that player should, in my opinion, should want to go out there and, like, yeah, you might have to go through a dangerous system and risk something to get to that beautiful nebula or whatever that you'd like to see, even. You know what I mean? It's just...
Well, that's good.
Go ahead.
That's just going to be gameplay as well, isn't it? So if you give as many options as possible towards the player, they'll just fit themselves into that category anyway. So, like
That's
you said,
a really good point.
If the risk is, well, okay, Terra is a very high-tech sort of fancy system, and you can only get certain things from there. Everybody loves visuals and claws and stuff like that for the characters, so they're going to have to go there to get this stuff. It's like currently in game, you have to go to Grimhex to get a certain part of armor, or go to Levski to get another
the
part
current best weapons, right? Or at Grimhex.
Exactly, yeah. So they're going to have to do that anyway, because it's the way the game is positioned these things. It's the same in Elite Dangerous. You can buy an Anaconda in Elite Dangerous for a certain amount in one system, but then you can go to a high-tech system where everybody's got these fancy things, and it's a lower price because they can't really sell it because everybody's got it.
Yeah.
So, which leads me on to the insurance as well. The insurance, it should be policy-based, like kind of like in real life, but like a very watered-down version. So there should be an understanding of, okay, like you said, if you go into pirate space, then yes, it's kind of null and void. But if you do something else, then it's okay.
Yeah.
And that also adds a lot of gameplay and a lot of player interactive-based thing, because you'll want someone to come along with you. Because obviously, like, you don't want to get blown up and have to spend more money.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm gonna let you go from here, Sielski, because we got other callers. But I'm gonna make another point real quick. So I'll oh, they made a caller dump channel. Perfect. So I'm gonna dump you in the caller dump channel. So I'll see you later. Thank you so much for your call. Hopefully we'll see you next time.
Thank you very
much. It was
much.
a really, really good call.
Cheers.
Thank you. One of the other things that I'm gonna go back to Albion Online, because that's what I've been playing a lot lately, is that Albion Online did really well, is this idea of, okay, the lower tier material that's actually needed to make the higher tier material is only in the casual space. Now, I don't think that works in a lore standpoint necessarily in Star Citizen or in the universe, really, because like the lower tier would be the most abundant materials. But I do think one way to do what Star Citizen wants to do, and this is not appealing to casual players, it's just kind of something that popped in my head and I want to make this point, is that you're able to bring, like, you're bringing casual players and non-casual players, or casual players and PvP players together because they need each other, in the sense that, well, the casual players spend all their time in UEE space, and maybe a miner would be mining this sort of abundant material in that space, but it's needed to create weapons and missiles and anything, as a matter of fact, out in the outskirts. And in order to, if you want to make money, you can't sell it in the, like, let's say, I don't know, Earth. You can't sell it on Earth because it's so abundant there, but it's not abundant out on the rim. So you want to bring it to the rim. You know what I mean? And they need each other, but there's some risk involved in that transaction. But all right, let me bring in First Emperor. He's our next caller. First Emperor, you're on Answer the Call.
Hello.
Hello.
Austria.
Greetings from America.
Yeah. About casuals, I think it's really hard to say what a casual player is. There's so many areas you can be casual at. So I guess there are those that have little time to play and still want to go in deep in one specific part of the game, like mining, for example. Or those that just come in, want to have some good fun and go out without going into any detail whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to cater to those without sacrificing what Star Citizen should and could be.
Yeah.
If you go if you give them too many shortcuts.
Because if you give them too many shortcuts, then even the hardcore players are going to take those shortcuts, right? and then kind of breaks the game.
Yeah, well, the hardcore players will leave because there's not enough content.
True. Yeah.
They actually want to live in the verse, and yeah, or me at least.
Hmm.
But there was a good point. I'm not sure who made it about orgs and stuff. I'm not so sure that CRG even should do too much to cater to casuals, because orgs will pretty much take over a lot of this, like showing the ropes, helping with missions, giving them ships to use, like it's already been done right now.
That's a really good point, that the players in the game will likely make the life a little bit easier on casual players. And we know full well, I mean, anybody that's played an MMO before, there's guilds and orgs in MMOs that are like, we help new players. And then, like, you know, new players come into the game and they show them the ropes of how to go from, I don't really know how to play this game that well, to the min-maxer type player, if that's what they want to be. We know, like, my definition of a casual is someone that doesn't want to min-max. They come in, they play a little bit, they enjoy the game mechanics, they might kill an NPC here and there, maybe they do some PvP, but not too much, and then be on their way.
Yeah, exactly. And for those that just want the action, there is still Star Marine and Arena Commander that they can play without losing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if it works and if it's built out, yeah. What else? Dun, 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 dun. But I think what the most important thing is, though, is the ease of access when you start out for the first time. Like it is now with all the new stuff and all the changes that are happening all the time. It's a lot of very overwhelming if you don't follow the development. And I think someone who comes in, especially when Lowell is live, well, what do they do first? There needs to be some line to follow just to get in there. Some small easy missions, just showing what all the gameplay mechanics are, and then they can choose what road. And that's what's missing for me, no matter what casual player they are, just to get into the game, like the starting point. There is none, right?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's hard. That's one thing. It's hard to define how they're going to do that. We know they want to have a tutorial. We know they want to ease players into it a little bit, at least, because, like, I know a new player will come in and they don't even know how to take off, most likely. You know what I mean? Or even turn on their ship. So there's a lot of explaining that needs to get done. And I think we can probably shelf that one for now, because I think that's going to end up being something that's in the game on release. Is it'll have enough of a tutorial to explain people. Like, even now, guys, if I don't, play the Evocati patch, when it comes to Open P2, I have no clue what's going on half the time, right? So it changes every time. But all right, first I'm gonna throw you in the caller dump and bring in Caman for the next one. All right.
Okay.
Thank you for your call, as always. We'll see you.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime, man. Anytime. All right, Caman. Caman, you're on Answer the Call.
Hey, Torque. Thank you for taking my call.
Anytime, man. What's up?
I'm actually really happy that you define casuals in the sense of risk aversion as opposed to time commitment, because I think it's a much more interesting conversation. I
Absolutely.
think that the time commitment category is much easier to solve in terms of paying, in terms of monetization, even though that's a very controversial topic. I think that it is a big part of the MMO business, and it's one that's been practiced so much and for so long that that's less of an interesting conversation. It's more of a, how do we monetize this? How do we bridge the gap in time and allow alternatives for that? And that is a separate discussion, but a simpler one that I don't think that we have a lot of say in at the end anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere,
Yeah. So having said that, a lot of my opinions aren't going to be very specific to systems or insurance or any of that. It's going to be a reiteration of a lot of what you said, but I still think it's important to do that. So I see casual players staying more or less under the safety umbrella of the UEE. And when they venture out, most of their combat interactions will be with AI that are tuned around their skill level. We know that the UEE will be the main governing body that provide security and law enforcement in the universe. And we know that the universe will be majority AI. So casual players will likely favor missions or locations that are close to UEE controlled stations, landing zones, planets, what have you. So while they'll get less reward, they get the added security while doing what they're doing, and the thrill from the slight but still existing risk of combat. It's a small risk, but that risk will be adequate for a casual. But if that combat occurs, it will likely be with AI that'll be tuned for their satisfactory experience, and with a sharply decreased risk of being pirated by a player, because those pirates will need to deal with faster UEE or security response for much less valuable commodities. So the only people that will want to bother that type of player is a griefer anyway. And you said that's a separate discussion, so I'm not going to really touch on that. But despite the quoted intention for player combat that you listed, and I thought that was important because I wasn't aware of that quote. But despite that quote, we know from the 90% AI design that most combat interactions should statistically be with AI unless that specific location is incentivized for PvP. And in that case, casuals would forego the added potential reward of those areas by simply avoiding them. And it's not going to take a lot of effort to do that because they're going to be really specific bits in space to avoid. And there'll be easy YouTube guides saying, here's the 10 areas you should have, like, it's not going to be hard to
Board Gamer, 100%. That's Board Gamer all day. He's going to be all over that. But at the same time, this one we can't go into, but I think it's going to be a little bit. I think people are going to be jumping the more casually traveled roads. But I do agree with you that most of the encounters will be with non-players. They'll be with NPCs. But the only thing that I kind of disagree with, I thought you make some really fantastic points, and I really enjoyed the points that you made. The only one that I have a little bit of an issue with is that the NPCs would likely be tuned for that player. I think the NPCs should be tuned for the situation, perhaps, and the situations that are going on in the verse. And I think that's how it will happen, is based on things that are going on. If there's like the way that CIG is going to balance their economy is, let's say, a lot of Laranite, which is a popular material right now, will be traded. And this was discussed at CitizenCon, that, let's say a lot of Laranite is being traded through this little run here. Then the game is going to create a probability volume, thank you Detox in the Twitch chat, to say, well, let's spawn some pirates here that attack that trade run. And those pirates will likely be pretty difficult depending on the amount of Laranite that's going back and forth, right? If it's going to really destroy the economy of Laranite, then those pirates are going to kill you way more often than they would be balanced towards you, right? So I think for the casual player, it would be nice if they were tuned, but I don't think that that's how it should be necessarily, because it would be good for the casual player, but is it good for the game overall to do it that way?
Yeah, I think that's perfectly stated. And hearing your response, I may have misstated kind of how I envisioned it.
Okay.
Because I do think that the AI should be tuned for the situation in the universe, and that'd be a persistent sort of presentation of difficulty for everyone in that area. That does make more sense. But my understanding, I'm kind of thinking of this, and this could be me like projecting too much of a psychological profile of a casual player, many of them being solo and not really planning as a group and taking more risk. But
I don't think that's wrong to assume either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Chris Roberts mentioned that he plans to have combat experiences where pretty much anyone can feel like, a badass because of how the AI will be tuned for them. And that's why I mentioned that.
Okay.
He wants that possibility to be there. And he specifically did say that. So if you couple this idea with Tony Z's stated design for probability volumes, we can infer that the mission system could, for example, produce AI that provides enough of a challenge for casuals to enjoy the full spectrum of professions, even in riskier space, without having to deal with the griefy political dynamics of the PvP-oriented bits of the universe. So I envision a progression for casuals that involve risk, which it seems crazy, but I think that casuals, like you all were saying earlier, you were speaking on this earlier, and I think another caller, of how the game will be designed, Chris Roberts seems to want to push, kind of usher even a casual player into wanting to explore riskier possibilities for their gameplay. So I do see a pathway for that. And I don't know exactly how they'll solve their problem, but I think that your point is well made, and the AI being tuned for the situation and not trying to destroy the economy. But there is a balance that needs to be struck there. But I've seen some backers who are clearly expecting a ruthless sandbox where they have relatively easy access to rob non-combative players who just want to have fun exploring or dabbling in industry. I think those backers are going to be disappointed. It simply doesn't seem logical, in my opinion, based on what is known about the size of the universe, the ubiquity of AI, for more combat-oriented players to just can't constantly stomp on or engage with casuals. Even with the quantum tracking, trail tracking, even with all the stuff that we know, it doesn't make sense for that to be. If anything, it appears to me that the game's design would severely discourage that, rather than encourage it. If you want to be a PvP player, it seems like you'd be more encouraged to go to those specific points of interest and engage in higher risk with higher skilled players, and deal with that, because that seems like it would be more rewarding. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand some backers' seeming expectation of, I'm a PvP player and I have fun stomping on Care Bears, and that's how I have my fun, and that's what I'm expecting from this game. I feel like those people are going to be extremely disappointed or discouraged to do that.
I don't think they'll be extremely disappointed, but I don't think they're going to get the experience that's in their head. I think they absolutely should be able to stomp on Care Bears at times, but then again, probability volume should come into play and make it difficult for them, because now the whole place should be bounty hunting them, right?
Yeah.
So like just based on that discussion that Tony had, like now, like Detox TV just comes in the chat and just says probability volumes, and that changes, like that kind of changes everything. I think that's the way they handle casual players. And I kind of like your idea of it maybe being tuned in their direction, like to their level or whatever. And then, but I still think maybe there should be a percentage chance that given the situation, that they don't.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we
survive.
Even if you're situated, this is something that Chris Roberts said years ago, so I could be way off base. But we know that. Chris Roberts said, even if you're stationed on a landing zone in the middle of UE space, it's possible for somebody to walk up and shoot you in the head. It's going to end badly for them. It's going to probably end badly for you too, but it's possible. So there's always that tension there. But I think that the universe will certainly be large enough for both casuals and PvPers to exist. But in my mind, PvPers who are expecting to stomp on noobs probably back the wrong game if they're looking to do that all the time. It really boils down to the AI design and the designation of zones. Not all risk needs to constitute combat with another player.
Exactly.
And not all consequences that proceed from taking a risk needs to be identical. While I fully expect casuals to experience PvP at some point, I can envision casuals having a full career in Star Citizen with minimal PvP. And that's just my opinion.
I agree. And that's the kind of statement that I was trying to make the whole time, is that it's risk versus reward, but the risk isn't always PvP encounters. It's PvE encounters with difficult NPCs, or an interdiction of, that brings you into a coil situation that might be difficult to get out of and take time, and damage to your ship. All sorts of different things. It doesn't have to be PvP.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
it could be environmental. But thank you for taking my call,
dude. Thank you for calling MVP of today. We have one more caller, but so far you got the MVP. I thought you handled your points really, really well, and had a lot of really good ones. So thank you for your call. I really appreciate it. Later, Caman. All right, and then Ponut64. Ponut64, you are on. Answer the call. Oh crap! You gotta follow that guy.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Oh, no.
I can hear you in the stream, sorry, but I can't hear you in... All right.
Then make your points and I'll be quiet, okay? And then we'll let you go. We'll do it that way.
Okay, so I'm the worst caller of the day. But my point is, I enjoy your discussion about the different ways we define casuals and how we design a metagame to cater to them. But I'm thinking more about the actual game mechanics. The core game design is how hard is the game? That is more how many casuals are you going to get? And if the game is too hard, like Star Citizen could be, you're not going to get very many casual players to cater to begin with. So, and a game for an example of that is PlanetSide 2. This was brought up in chat.
Okay.
But PlanetSide 2 is hard. You die all the time in that game, and when a new player logs in, they just die over and over and over and over again. Because you're thrown in with the fishes. You're thrown in with the top and the bottom of players. But
is that a good experience for people, though?
Well, also I can hear you now, so sorry.
Okay, perfect. Is that a good experience?
Is that a good experience for people? No, it's not. Because if you log in solo, the game is hard. You don't know what to do. Also, thanks, chat. I told you I'm the worst.
Don't look at them.
And someone in chat says PlanetSide 2 is one of the worst PvP FPS experiences I've ever been a part of. Well, that's because we were thinking about there's organizations that are supposed to teach new players how to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't about, that's actually about the metagame. But I'm talking, if you won't need organizations to tell people how to play the game if the game is easy.
Yeah.
Star Citizen, as you brought up, it's kind of hard. You have to learn all the controls. You have to find out what to do. Even mining, it's not self-explanatory.
That's what I was going to say. Well, not only is it not self-explanatory, but we were just playing before Answer the Call today, and in the global chat, like the actual typing chat, players were talking about mining and what rock should I be trying to get? And oh man, those Laranite rocks, they're so hard to break. Like, I've broken most of them, and it is very difficult, some of them. But for the casual player, it's actually a challenge. And when they do that, it's fun.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
So that's core game mechanics. If you can bring the game down to a level where it's easy enough to learn,
mm-hmm.
you'll get different kinds of casual players.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm thinking of casual players kind of like time investment, kind of like risk versus reward, but most like how much do you suck? So this is an elitist point of view.
But it's a really good point that we haven't made yet. So yeah, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's why I bring up PlanetSide 2, is if you suck at that game, you're never going to have fun because, I mean, no outfit is going to want to play with you because you can't shoot. You don't know what to do. And but in PlanetSide 2, the developers really tried to drive home the new player experience because they know the game is hard. And we don't know if Star Citizen is going to be as hard as that game or if it's going to be like Elite Dangerous, where Elite Dangerous still has a learning curve, but it's and also people in chat brought up Eve, where the idea of organizations teaching new players how to play worked. But in PlanetSide 2, it did not work, not at all. And in Star Citizen, I'm expecting that it really depends on how the core flight mechanics. Like when I logged in today for 3.3 to learn about the game performance, and I didn't want to get on a ship because I didn't want to freaking learn how to do the quantum drive, but I figured it out. So, and I have friends who I brought into the game, and I'm most concerned about them being casual in that they suck. And so the risk versus reward is about how good are you at the game versus the reward you get. And that's a different concept to economic investment, which is basically time investment, where you have a constellation you're taking on a mission that you should be able to do with an Aurora. Like, that's very low risk, very low reward, yes. But at the same time, let's say you take the most difficult jump point through the most dangerous systems, well, you're a better player. If you make that jump faster, if you could do that in an Aurora, you should be able to make more money than someone who sucks with a Constellation. So that's a different idea of risk versus reward, because technically the player with the Aurora is risking less money to do it, but he's a better player.
You also make a decent point where, but it's on the opposite spectrum of the skill level should come into play because it makes the hardcore player enjoy the game as well. You know, is that the complication, the difficult things should be rewarding for the hardcore player. Again, it just goes completely away from that PvP centric conversation that we've had most of the podcast.
Yeah, the PvP conversation, that really, I think I can bring that back to PlanetSide 2 really well. And that with PvP, you're thrown in with the fishes. You're thrown in with the best of them and the worst of them. You can have fun fighting the worst of them, if you're the worst of them. You can have fun fighting the best of them as long as you're with the best of them. So that PvP is where the players are content. It's really difficult to design a metagame around that.
Yeah.
And as we've discussed, we know it is. But it is easy to design core game mechanics that are fun to do PvP with, as we've seen in a plethora of like Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty, where PvP is fun. But so I think I've made my point.
I think so too, and I think you had a different take, which was really nice, and I appreciated it because I think we were very PvP centric from the start, and I'm glad you talked about it from a game mechanic standpoint because that's what people are going to be playing, right? And that's probably what the casual player is going to be involved in more than anything is enjoying the game mechanics, enjoying exploration, enjoying mining, enjoying whatever. I mean, we can name it till the end of time. There's should be so many things to do in Star Citizen, but
that's what attracts me to the game is the depth of skill that is possible. They're talking about depth of skill for even mining, where you have to place your probing missile at the right spot in the asteroid, or else it breaks apart and you suck.
Yeah.
So that's what I like is,
and maybe they're doing that and maybe they're not, but how they're doing it now, and I don't think it's going to change drastically from here, is the more valuable rocks are extremely difficult to break up perfectly, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, so like a hardcore player is going to work really, really hard and do it. And when they do it, it's going to feel so good. But the casual player is going to go, you know what? That rock, I don't mess with Laranite. I only mine Boraz because Boraz is a valuable rock. It's not, you don't get as much money of it per rock, but you do make a decent amount of money from it. And you just go and you mine your Boraz and you move on and you have your fun. You enjoy the experience, but it's a little bit easier.
Yeah. That's my idea of casual versus hardcore is do you suck? So,
yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you, Ponut.
Thank you.
No problem, man. And that concludes Answer the Call for this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Feedback on the new overlay. Is it better with the 1-screen, 2-screen little thing with Harold or whatever his name is on the phone? And yeah, so I want to hear your comments below. I want to hear what you think about a casual player and how you feel from the discussions that we've had today of how Star Citizen should handle it. I think this probability volume thing is really the answer. I think it took the podcast to actually come to that idea. So thank you. I think Detox was the first one to bring it up. And a lot of people made some really good comparisons to other games. So I really appreciate it. So again, leave those comments below and let me know what you guys think. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button for more videos like this in the future. And I'll see you guys in the next video.